Swiss banking giant UBS paying out $1.5 billion to U.S., U.K., and Swiss authorities as part of that LIBOR rate rigging investigation. Now, that's the London Interbank Offered Rate. That's a benchmark rate, and ultimately it affects the cost that you and I pay to borrow money for things like houses and cars. As part of an agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, UBS has also agreed to enter a plea to one count of wire fraud relating to manipulation of benchmark interest rates, including the yen LIBOR. A lot of this UBS action based at their Asian trading centers.
UBS is the second bank after Barclays to be accused of misconduct in connection with LIBOR, the London Interbank Offered Rate, the rate at which banks lend to each other. It's used to price more than $350 trillion in contracts around the world. Potential losers include pension funds, insurance companies and individuals. More than a dozen banks have been caught up in the international inquiry, and there are more cases to come.
I would imagine there's probably more skeletons in the cupboard, and I really think that at some point policymakers and regulators need to start focusing on the fact that we probably need banks to engineer a recovery and growth, and at some point there needs to be a line in the sand drawn. I think regulators need to be careful about levying too high fines.
The UK authorities have already arrested 3 people in connection with the Serious Fraud Office's criminal LIBOR investigation. For days, UBS has been locked in negotiations with the UK, US and Swiss authorities over an intercontinental scheme to allegedly manipulate the yen LIBOR rate, involving desks from Tokyo to London.
The bank's chief executive has told staff it's too early to say how and if customers were affected. Global markets didn't react to the fine, as it was widely expected UBS would settle the ongoing investigation. But the penalty is 3 times what British bank Barclays had to pay for manipulating LIBOR rates. Used in hundreds of trillions of euros worth of financial contracts, ranging from credit cards to complicated derivatives, and called the world's most important financial instrument, manipulation of the LIBOR rates has come under intense scrutiny.
Well, UBS knew this was coming. As you said in your introduction there, global financial regulators have been investigating 20 big banks, and UBS was pretty much at the top of the list. So they knew they were going to be in for a fine, but this is a huge fine, $1.5 billion, the second largest fine ever imposed on a bank in history, as far as I know this morning. And I think that for UBS, which has been reeling from one disaster to another, they had the Rogue Trader scandal, that lost over $2 billion. They've had issues with the United States over tax evasion. A few years ago, as you and I know, they had the disaster of the subprime mortgage, where the Swiss government had to bail them out. They're making big job losses at the moment. The man at the top, Sergio Ermotti, says he is a new broom, he is going to sort it out. But he's looking at fourth quarter losses now after having just brought the bank back into a bit of profit over the last year or so. So really a bad day for Switzerland's biggest bank.